Hello everyone and welcome to the Micro Munch channel. I'm Sam. I am joined by Micro Munch and I'm also joined by our friend Ben.
Hello.
And welcome to the yearly Untitled Podcast, which is not going to be yearly for much longer. But yeah, welcome back to the Untitled Podcast, where we are planning to discuss the upcoming Premier League season, the transfers, Saudi, everything else that is related to this coming season. So we've got a few topics to discuss. Again, we're open to comments and feedback. So whatever you guys think at the end of this podcast, let us know. And if you like it, we'll do more. If you don't, tough, we're still going to do more. So yeah, hey guys, nice to speak to you about footy for a change. It's been a while.
It has, mate. It has way too long. And yeah, plenty to talk about. Some of which I'm obviously not looking forward to. Some of it I am. But yeah, it's going to be. I mean, how have you guys found the summer so far? In general, has it been everything that you hoped and expected, or has it been fallen a little flat?
I kind of want to hear from a Spurs point of view, Ben.
Well, it's fair to say, looking back on last season, that this kind of build up with pre-season's been refreshing. The old Ange Ball. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched anything related to Celtic, but I know there's a lot of good feedback coming from the fans about this manager and his style of play, and it's something that we've all been crying out for a very long time. You know, we've gone through two very big managers with very arguably outdated styles of play, very defensive, to quote, park the bus. And I think from a fan perspective, this is something that we've just been crying out for. And I think with the whole Kane debacle, I would quite happily just see a new approach on the field that doesn't rely on somebody like Kane to constantly drop back and feed the balls. You know, bringing in Maddison. You know, I'm really excited to see what this team can do.
And what about Liverpool, Mike? How are you feeling their pre-season's going at the minute?
I think pre-season is going quite well. We got a 4-0 win against Leicester yesterday, and I think there's obviously some really good signs. It looks like Núñez has hit the ground running from that point of view, and I think he's due a big season this year. I can see that happening. Jota looks in sharp form. Salah's been excellent. Going forward, I think we're good. I think the obvious questions are still pretty similar to what they were last year, really, which is at the back, are we really good enough? I still think we're in need of a centre-back and maybe another right-back, potentially, depending on what they want to do with Trent. And obviously the midfield. I think before the recent Saudi sales, I was pretty happy. I think the additions of Szoboszlai and, oh my God, I've been absolutely more, and McAllister. I think they're obviously two very good players. They kind of fit the profile of what we've been doing before. You know, they're kind of in that lovely between 23 to 28 bracket. They're only going to get better. I think the McAllister deal is potentially quite a good sort of...
It's a brilliant deal.
I think it's a good value for money deal. I think we can hopefully take him on to another level, which would be good. Szoboszlai is... That one was a bit weird because it just kind of came out of the blue. You know, there wasn't really much chat about that going on. Obviously, there was a lot of talk that we were in for Thuram and Kone and Lavia, and then Szoboszlai just kind of came out of the blue, just because of obviously the release clause. But from what I've seen him, I know because I watch a fair bit of Bundesliga, I've known about him for a little while. And obviously, when England got smashed by Hungary a year or so ago, he was in very, very good form then, and he looked very good. So I'm expecting good things. He looks like a Klopp player, but now I think we're light, I think would be my general thing. I think we're very light in the areas that were already a concern. We've essentially lost, nearly 6 first team players or first team squad players. And
Is it that many?
Well, we've got, if you look at it then, obviously Fabs is going to go. Hendo's gone, which we'll get on to later, I would imagine. Kate has gone. Oxlade, Chamberlain has gone. Who else has gone? There were a couple of other players that were in there as well.
So a lot of first team then has
well, first team squad players.
Squad,
Yeah, which is my problem. I think now again in classic Liverpool fashion, apart from the DM, if when Fabinho goes, our first 11 is pretty good. Yeah, and I think it very similar to maybe Arsenal last year. I think it could give anybody a game. But after that, it'll be the same old problem, which is that I just don't think the squad is deep enough. You know, especially in the midfield. You know, I think Curtis Jones and Elliott are due to have big seasons. Jones ended the season brilliantly at the end of last year, and he played really well in the under-21s championships this in the summer. And Elliott obviously had a decent season last year, but got overplayed. Bajcetic will be back, but you can't really be relying on 18 to 21-year-old kids to play regularly. So I'm confident we'll be back in the top four, but in terms of challenging back to where we were, not unless we sign at least another 2 first team starters, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
It's interesting because when you say that, because I always find with Liverpool is that when you look in the last 2-3 seasons, or however long they've kind of been on this kind of ascendancy, they've always had that starting 11 that was so consistent and at such a high level. I never really saw Liverpool as a team with a lot of depth, if I'm honest. Like when you look at the bench, you're talking about Oxlade-Chamberlain. That's not giving you depth. He was a average player at best. Origi obviously was a phenomenal bench player. Who could go onto the pitch and create magic. But yeah, it's interesting. I think if you have a strong 11, you can replicate what you've done in the past, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, part of me says that. I think that there's also an argument. I think that some of the other rest of the squad was sort of undervalued, especially in the kind of non-quadruple season. There were a lot of players that came off the bench and actually did that. I think in terms of going forward, I think we've got loads of game-changing players. Like, we could basically field 3 different front threes and still be arguably really, really strong regardless of who we played up there. We've got 5 or 6 attackers, 5 at least, which would probably make it into most Premier League first 11s. But
it's interesting though, because I think it's that question with Salah though, because I think you're always going to be threatening on when you look at the lineup when you've got Salah on there. But I think if you take away Salah, you lose a lot of threat factor, because even though you've got so much quality in the front, you've got Diaz, you've got Cody, you've got Jota, but I think not having Salah in that equation changes that whole kind of like that lineup,
Yeah, but I think the thing is about Mo, with that in mind, is that, for one, touch wood, he's rarely ever injured. And sort of second of all, I think there was that year when we did do the country, we managed without Salah and Mane, and I think there's players come through. There's a really young player called Ben Doak who's coming through, and he looks electric, like really, really, really good. He's very, very raw. But I think, if you were to ask him or Harvey Elliott or someone I think you're right. If we didn't have Salah for a number of games, then I think we would struggle. But then you could say the same about that with like nearly any of the top teams. If Arsenal didn't have Saka or Odegaard or Martinelli, any one of those 3 for a prolonged period of time, I think they would struggle. Maybe less so Martinelli now because they got Trossard. Spurs, obviously, if you take Kane out, that's a completely different team. United, Rashford, potentially, even the only team really maybe doesn't subscribe to is City. But then I suppose actually flip reverse that, if you take Haaland out of them, maybe now with the squad that they've got, it's maybe not as strong as it used to be.
I think Alvarez could easily fit into that.
Yeah, no, I forgot about
and
him.
And I'd argue that actually Alvarez is probably more an all-rounder player.
Then I
compared
forgot
to Haaland.
Yeah, no, I forgot about him. That's great. The less I talk about them, the better. Honestly,
we'll keep it light.
Yeah, literally, like I said, I think it's one of those where if they sign Gvardiol, then we might as well pack up and go home. But fingers crossed there. Might as well ask you, Sam, from a United point of view. I mean, obviously, I think, from a completely objective point of view, from an outsider's perspective, I think the one thing that we were all kind of hoping that you wouldn't get, you've gone and got, which is potentially a very, very, very decent striker in Hoyland, whatever his name is. B-Tech Haaland, as I'm going to have to start calling him now. But he obviously looks like, I don't want to say the real deal just yet, but he obviously looks very, very promising. So I'm guessing from your point of view, you've got to be quite quietly happy.
It's really weird because so there's the whole. We'll start with where everyone said we needed to improve, and that was a goalkeeper. So there were all sorts of names being thrown around for our goalie, which was so obviously David De Gea has been a great servant to the club, but you know there's been so much talk about how he's not been that good, and you look back on his career. Yes, he's won a lot of stuff with United, but actually he probably wasn't as good as everyone thought. But for me, he was a great servant to the club. But he's become a club legend. Onana, I'm not sure on personally. I think it's probably just because that whole modern goalkeeping thing is, he takes that in his stride and is really sort of trying to change United from the back, which is great because that's where our strength. One of our big strengths is with Lisandro Martinez and how he plays out of the back. So I only hope that that's going to improve.
I was going to say, I think defensively, you guys are pretty much as good as like nearly anybody in the league. I was looking at even in pre-season. Obviously Real Madrid result aside.
I think looking at pre-season alone, it cries out, like you said, defence solid, but not enough goals scored. And I'll touch on that in a minute. But it was like, and then we've got, we wanted to improve the depth in midfield, and Mason Mount, who I think we paid too much for, personally. But last season, everyone bases everything off of last season and how little he played and how poorly he played or how well he played. But you only have to look. He was Chelsea's Player of the Year twice, which was the same amount as Eden Hazard. So I can't remember who else. I read it elsewhere. Someone else only got it twice. I think it was Zola. I think Zola only got it twice. So,
I think as well the season before that he was top for their goals and assists, and that was the season where they obviously still qualified for the Champions League.
Exactly.
And they got to 2 cup finals. So it's not like it's. I agree with you on the Mount thing. I think too much money, but then at the same time that's just English tax. Do you know what I mean? If that's a non-English player. Especially a non-English Chelsea player, if it's basically it's Chelsea tax as well, because obviously they're trying to get themselves out of the mire of shit that they put themselves into. They put themselves into a really difficult situation, and they were always going to need to sum off. So I'm the same as you. I actually think he's going to be a very, very good signing. I was a little bit disappointed we didn't go for him. As in Liverpool, I mean, obviously we got McAllister, who I think is maybe a bit similar, but I actually think Mount's got a bit more output to him.
Well, that's also a credit to him, the fact that Liverpool, Arsenal, us, we all the original top 4
we're after him.
We're after him. So that says a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he gets a bit of bad stick. I think, unfortunately, he's got labelled in that sort of England Gareth Southgate's favourite, so he gets a bit of a false reputation for that.
I think for me, it's hard to understand a lot of the time where he fits. I mean, in terms of his style of play, I wouldn't say he's like an aggressive Cam. He's not somebody who's quite forward, he's not necessarily. Defensive even.
Yeah, he's labelled as a dynamic midfielder, so more of your box to box type player.
I was going to say he plays the 8, which is what's making me think in some ways I think it's a really good for signing for United, but in some ways it could also be problematic depending on how Ten Hag wants to play it, because I know that obviously Ten Hag last year played a lot with a 4-2-3-1, but I think at Ajax it was more of a 4-3-3. So if you're playing with the 4-3-3, it makes more sense, because obviously you have Casemiro holding and then Mount and Fernandes as your two midfielders, and then I think that looks very, very good. And obviously then you've got a bit more depth coming off, because if you've obviously got I don't know, obviously, if Fred's still going to be there when that comes around, but, you've still got him, you've still got McTominay. There's a bit of a drop-off, but I think it depends on, but has Eriksen stayed on? I can't remember if he's stayed on or if he's got...
So we've still got Eriksen, which is ideal, because ultimately, I think...
He can just come on for the last 20 minutes just to control the game and shut it down, really.
I actually think Eriksen... People are sort of writing off, Eriksen now, that Mount signed in that the starting 11 will be, with Casemiro, Fernandes and Mount in that 3 in the midfield. But actually, I do think there's going to be a lot more rotation this year in our squads, and that Eriksen will still get a lot of minutes, because just the calibre of player that he is and what he brings to a team.
He'll definitely get a lot of play in like the cup runs, definitely.
Yeah, and I just think
early stages.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, like you said, mate, Højlund's a great sort of addition to a squad where we desperately needed an out-and-out number 9. So I'm a little bit concerned at paying 68 million up front for a 20-year-old who scored 9 goals in Serie A last season.
I mean, I think again though,
it's very United.
No, but I think the thing with that though is that it depends on what they do with him. I think it's one of those where you'd like to think that if they buy him, you stick with him. And one thing I would say is that, in fairness to Ten Hag, so far he hasn't got much wrong in the transfer market. Maybe you could argue Weghorst, but then it's very difficult to find any kind of value or availability in January. I never really judged the January transfer window on that. There's only a few kind of exceptions to the rule with successful signings that have happened in that game period. A lot of it happens in the summer. And I think in some ways actually that's part of the reason why. I agree in the sense I think it is a bit of a gamble, but it is also one of those ones where really, who are the sort of available alternatives? That's my biggest thing is it's not like Osimhen's made it very clear he's not going to leave Napoli, so that's a no-go. He was priced out of us. Way at the start. Same with Kane. The minute, you sort of hearing Tottenham want 100 mil for Kane, I understand that. He probably is a 100 mil player. And Osimhen, I think, was 80 to 90 mil. I think was their asking price, which, mate, again, probably just a way of keeping hold of a player rather than his actual value. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how Højlund develops. And the thing that worries me is that there's no senior striker really at the club for him to learn off
of. Which I think the last thing I want him to look at is Martial as the senior striker in the squad. That's the last thing, and I hope he is one of the ones that we sell on. To
be fair, I think this is a really good time to start signing young players, because I think you look like 2 or 3 seasons ago when you've got Ollie, you've got the Ralph, as the interim. That was a bad time to introduce young players. I take Sancho as a classic example where they just completely misused him. They didn't develop him. He was pretty much a ready-made playmaker from the Bundesliga, and how they managed to get him to go backwards, I still can't work out. You could argue that maybe down to him as a person and just being a bit too much too soon. But I think Ten Hag is a player that is more than capable of nurturing young players, and you look at the whole Ajax system. There's so many young players that just become incredible footballers. Through that club.
I think we touched on it last year. I think talking about Sancho and Rashford actually, and how potentially United didn't look after them as well as the other England players that returned after the Euros. Mainly because but you know, Marcus is Marcus. He's hit the ground. He had a sensational season last year, and you know, hopefully this year is more of the same. And I just hope that, you know, I'd be happy if Højlund bagged 12, 15 goals. I'm not expecting a 20-goal player straight off the bat, but that's 15 goals that came from a striker that we didn't have last season.
Yeah, exactly.
With Marcus still cutting in off of the left, and you know, hopefully this season we'll see a bit more of Anthony as well, and him cutting in on the right. You know, if that's what Ten Hag wants to do with his front three. But you know, looking at pre-season, I've watched some of the training as well, and you know, there's a lot of sharpness that, you know, I think wasn't there before, and I think Ten Hag's obviously had a great first season. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't win a trophy this season, but if we can progress in the league and maybe close the gap with City, I'd probably still be happy with that. But obviously, ultimately, the goal is silverware. But I mean, the only reason I say that we potentially might not win a trophy this season, and it's a good sort of segue into the rest of the league, but looking at how well other teams are doing in terms of recruitment, and the main one that really stands out for me this year is Villa.
Yeah, no, I know they are. I'm glad you mentioned that, because they are. I genuinely think they are my outside tip to really upset the apple cart this year.
Yeah. I genuinely believe that, because I think even they had a pre-season game with Newcastle. I think it was Newcastle.
Yeah, it was.
And it was a 3-3 result. Mm-hmm. And that was their brand new starting 11. Well, say they're a strong starting 11 from both teams. And you sort of go, okay, so are Villa now at the level of Newcastle, or are Newcastle now at the level of Villa? And I think it's more
the former.
I think it's the former, yeah.
It's hard though with pre-season, because you're kind of looking at so many different angles. You know, in one respect, you're going to have a lot of teams that are quite who have got a strong foundation, who are just preparing match fitness, and you know, maybe doing a bit of rotation with their academy. And then you might have it, as you know, Spurs being a good example, where you've got a team that's just changing their system from the scratch, and you're introducing new players. So I always take pre-season with a bit of pinch of salt, but I think you're definitely right. I think Villa are strong favourites for top 7 moving forward. And I only say top 7 because you have to look at the rest of the table. And though Villa have transformed, you look at Brighton, I think Chelsea are so much back in it now. You know, I think they will be strong contenders for a top 5 at the least. You know,
really? So shall we get into predictions? Shall we do a bit of predictions while we're on the sort of the subject? So, what we say. So, Mike, let's have your top 7. So let's have all your European places.
Mm-hmm. In order or just random?
However you want to do it, mate. Let's go. Let's go 7 upwards. So who's going to get that conference spot?
Hang on, I'm thinking now. So you've got, hang on, because I know what my top 7 would be. So you've got, actually, let me quickly reel them off. Then I'll tell you what the positions would be. Hang on. So you're gonna have City, obviously.
So that's winners, yeah.
Yeah, as it stands, yes. So.
Okay.
I think City winners. Everything else is up for debate, and I'll go through the order in a minute. I just got to get the 7 of them down. So, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, United, Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle.
That's your top 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're saying Chelsea into the top 7, Spurs out.
And
No Brighton.
And Villa in and Brighton out.
Okay. Interesting. Ben, what? Let's have your top 7.
This is just going on to pure kind of gut in the moment. I think no one's really going to realistically challenge Man City this season,
Okay.
especially like what Mike was saying earlier. If they get that centre back, it's going to be really difficult to imagine anyone else winning it.
Yeah.
Second place, it's really difficult. I want to say Man United, if I'm being honest.
That's interesting.
It's either that or Liverpool.
What do you think? Arsenal are going to drop off?
Yes. And the only reason I'm not saying that because I'm a Spurs fan, but I generally think, coming off the kind of last season where they've gone from potentially winning, it was a bit like the quadruple effect. When Liverpool lost the quadruple, they really kind of stumbled after that season. And I think Arsenal are going to kind of suffer a bit as well because they're still quite young. And to go again at that level that they did, and
Bit of second season syndrome.
Yeah, and they exceeded all expectations. They were never front runners to win the league or to get close. They just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I know they've got a strong team. You've got Rice in there now. Obviously, he's going to add a lot of quality in that midfield. But I think it will be, Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and then I think maybe Arsenal. And then I think Brighton will drop off a bit because I think they've sold some important players. Is whether they can replace that quality. Have I done 5?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you did City, United. Third spot, you were saying Liverpool.
I'd say I'd say 6th, Newcastle,
Right.
and then I'm going to say Spurs 7th, and then I would say 8th Villa. I think as good as Villa look, once again, I'm still kind of like, I just don't, I haven't seen enough of them to think that's going to be consistent performances.
I think the only reason Villa don't make it into the top 7 would be that they prioritise winning the Conference League.
Yeah, maybe. And this is what we got to consider as well, is that, Villa have now got Europe, they're now going to have to stretch that kind of squad to accommodate games, especially in the lower conference. You're going to have a lot more matches. You're going to have to move around a lot. I'd struggle to see them getting top 7 at this point.
That's interesting.
Sam?
So I agree. I think potentially City will. I don't think they'll walk it this year, but I do think that they will still win, which will be irritating because they'll do 3 on the bounce, and only United have done that. Or Chelsea as well, haven't they? So that's an elite club. So I definitely think City will win it. I'm not sold on Vardy, though. If he goes, I don't know if he'll be the centre back option for them that everyone thinks that he will be. But because I've just seen as well that they've Mahrez has obviously gone as well, hasn't he? So their squad is going to be very reliant on, and obviously no Gundogan either. So their squad is going to be very reliant on not a bare 11, but it will be a bare starting 11 that Pep will want to go. I can't take these guys out of the team, not even for a rest.
I think they've got a lot of youngsters they want to bring through, which might be the only reason that they do sort of struggle. Because I know that, I suppose the Gundogan equivalent that they've got now is they've got Kovacic, who I think is a phenomenal footballer. But on the right hand side is a bit of an issue, because the only person I think, if Bernardo Silva goes, which I think is the big if Bernardo Silva goes, I think I change my prediction if Silva goes. If he stays, then it's either him or Foden on the right, or
How long Silva got on his contract?
he's still got another couple of years, I think it is.
He'll stay.
Yeah, he probably will. But
I think so. Yeah, I definitely think City will win. My heart says United for second, but the top four for me, I think, is too difficult to predict this year. So I'm kind of going to do what you've done, Mike, which is just sort of reel off the teams that I think are going to be in there, just not in those positions. So I think you'll have United, Liverpool, and Arsenal, and it will be the old top four, pretty much, and then Chelsea in fifth. So, and then I think probably Villa will stay in that top 7 position because I just can't fault their recruitment at the minute.
No, I think Diaby's a game changer for me.
Do you know what? Even Yuri Tielemans from Leicester, like
on a free, unbelievable.
On a free.
Yeah.
And I think I can't see. Yeah, so I can't see Villa not doing well. And then 7th, I think.
Go on, say it.
I think Spurs will improve, but I don't think they'll improve enough for those European spots.
You son of a gun.
The thing is, Spurs are a funny one. So I could, I'll tell you, I'd say Spurs will do 7th, but the only way they'll do 7th is if they keep Kane.
Agreed.
And
He's going.
And well, the thing is, even your owners come out and said you cannot sell Kane on a free. You cannot let Kane go on a free. So
yeah, it's an ultimatum. He either signs a new contract or we sell him.
I know. So I am effectively gifting Spurs 7th by saying that. So if Spurs don't replace Kane with a decent striker, then I think they'll struggle because I don't. And
I'm going to go as far to say, if we get rid of Kane, I think we have a better chance of 7th.
Really?
Because, and the way I see it, and this is kind of an ideal situation for Spurs, if we can sell Kane, play Richarlison up front, or maybe Son, just swap those positions. But if we get Tony for January, after his ban, I think that would suit this new system to a T, and I think he would actually suit more than Kane would, because I think Kane, he's a build-up player. You know, he can drop back, he sets up play, whereas Tony's just an out-and-out, basically leading the line.
You're just after another penalty taker, mate. That's all that is.
Yeah.
Well, he's England's. He's probably England's second best striker. I can't think anyone. If I think Kane and then I go down the line, I think Tony.
Callum Wilson?
No, not better than Tony.
Scored more goals than him last season.
No, I get that because he's had more. Yeah, that's my opinion. I guess some people disagree with that, but
see, because I haven't even put Newcastle in the top 7.
No, agreed.
The only reason I think that is I don't think Eddie Howe's going to be cut out for managing a team that's in the Champions League as well as trying to stay in that top 7.
That's why I think Villa over Newcastle every day. Unai Emery is a much better manager in every respect.
I mean, he's a European manager.
He is a European manager, exactly, and Eddie Howe has got no experience in that whatsoever. And there might be a lot of people in the club who will be able to support him with that, but ultimately he still makes the decisions on that starting 11 for their opening group stage game.
I just don't think they've got enough in the squad. Like, literally, if you look at it last year, they played pretty much the majority of the same 11, 13 players all season, and you can't do that. And that's because you've got a week to, especially with the tempo of the play that they play at, you cannot do that.
The only thing I'm hoping that is if Newcastle do drop out of the European spots is that they don't get rid of Eddie Howe, because and it will be a hard decision for, the who's the chairperson at Newcastle.
Well, I suppose technically it's Staveley, I suppose, and the rest of the Saudi group.
Because it will be a hard decision for them not to get rid of him if Newcastle aren't in Europe, in any form of Europe, because of the amount of money that's obviously gone into that club. But
yeah,
Eddie Howe can be a great manager, but he just needs to have that experience. And I think if he has this season in the Champions League, and things don't work out, then you
got to give him a chance, haven't you? Really, because otherwise he's never going to learn, is he?
Well, you know my thoughts on this. I honestly think there's a natural evolution to Newcastle in the next couple of seasons, and I think Eddie Howe will take them to a certain level. And I think when they start bringing in bigger players, because they will have over the next couple of seasons a bigger revenue to spend on players, big names from big clubs around Europe will want a manager to match that kind of quota. And I think Eddie Howe, like I said, he's a phenomenal coach in terms of how he develops players, and what he did with Bournemouth was brilliant. But I think he's just destined for the England manager role. I really do.
Okay, so we've got our top sevens there or thereabouts, or in different places. We haven't spoken about any of the new boys that are coming up from the Championship yet.
Yes. Yeah.
So who did we have come up last year?
We had Luton, Sheffield United, and Burnley.
Okay. So any of those for relegation?
Two of them.
Luton.
Both of you. Luton.
Luton and Sheffield United will go down. Definitely.
I reckon both of them.
Yeah, I reckon both of them. I think Burnley will stay because I think Vincent Kompany is he's too good of a manager, and B, he's basically City's B team. So I can't see how they're going to go down. And they played such a great brand of football last year. It might only be a year-long stay, depending on what happens. But obviously they got new ownership now. It's a different type of Burnley than it was when Dyche was in charge. So I think both of them are going to go down. I think it's going to be brilliant having Luton in there, and it's nice to see someone. And it's nice to see someone. I'm delighted for one that Norwich didn't come back up. Nothing personal against Norwich, but I just think it's
your bog standard 3, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's good because basically the parachute payments, and it was really good to see that they didn't come up and a team like Luton managed to. I think that's a brilliant thing for the game, and obviously I think in some ways actually the more clubs that get a chance.
That playoff, what, Luton and Coventry?
Coventry
haven't been in the Premier League since 2003.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, which I think is ridiculous. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I don't think anyone was going to lose out of either one of them two being in the Premier League. I think both of them would have been really, really good additions. It's the first sort of playoff final I've watched where I was literally just like, I didn't really have a favourite. I wanted to go up. I just thought it's going to be brilliant if either of them go up. It's going to be really, really good.
How amazing for those away fans to go through someone's back garden to get into.
It's going to be amazing like that. I think genuinely, I think the only thing that might. I don't see any way Luton stay out because I'm looking at the team as well. They haven't really even invested in it. I think, but to be fair, I think
the structure's not big enough for them to stay up, I don't think.
But in any way, I think that's the right thing to do, though. Do you know what I mean? If you know really that you go in there, take the money from it, and then use that to rebuild when you come back up until you can get to the point where actually you can make a good fist of it without putting the company, sorry, that's not a great way of saying it, until you put the club in, where you don't put the club in financial turmoil. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? That is the kind of financially sensible way to do it. I think they're going to be brilliant. Sheffield United, like I said, they come up, they go down. It's
one of those yo-yo clubs, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean it's as sure as a sure thing. I don't see any world in which they stay up. Yeah.
Go on, sorry, mate.
I was going to say for me, it's all about that third spot. That I think is going to be the most interesting. I have my theory on it.
It starts with an E and is coloured blue.
No, actually, you'd be surprised. I wish. Put it this way, mate. If they didn't do it last year, if they somehow managed to survive after being that gash last year, it's just never going to happen. They're always just going to find the cakey way out. To score a goal on the final day, a goal that good on the final day, that's how cakey they are. You just have to accept that. No, but I want to hear what you guys think about the other promotion sides before we get on to the entire bottom three, because I think that third place is a right throw in. Do you know what I mean? It could be anybody.
I think I agree with you. Luton, I think, is great. I can't believe that. They got a 9,000 capacity stadium, maybe more, just slightly more. Is it something?
Yeah,
like that?
Yeah, something along those lines.
And this is no disrespect to anyone who supports Luton or is from Luton, but it's a small club. It is a small club. It's a club that has never been in the top flight.
No, yeah.
But I agree with you. I think they're going to go down because the main thing for me is when they've got their scouts out and about trying to find players this summer, and they go, oh yeah, we're from Luton.
Yeah.
This is no disrespect to Luton as a place or from anyone from Luton, but it's just the fact that you go, oh yeah, they're newly promoted into the Premier League. Go and play for Luton Town, and you're like,
no.
Where the hell is Luton?
No. The only people I think that they would be able to do is very similar to what the other teams did, where they brought players in from the Championship. And
either Championship or you've got players like Jesse Lingard on freeze.
Look how well that worked out. But
I think are gonna be mid-table. I think they won't be 10 in the top 10, but I think they'll be there or thereabouts.
Agreed. I think comfortably.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there was a video of Company at his old club. Who was his first manager club?
Anderlecht, wasn't it? Anderlecht.
And he absolutely berated the team in the dressing room, and they were winning.
Yeah, he's the reason. I think he is. If ever there was a person that was just born to be a manager, just Vincent Kompany. An incredible footballer, and by the looks of it, an even more incredible manager. To be fair, he just looks he's destined for a big job at some point. Well, we all know what job he's probably destined to take.
He's moulding it, isn't he?
Oh yeah, no, they play a very similar style in a very similar fashion. He has a very similar ethos. Treats his players pretty much the same as Pep does. He's learnt a lot from that. And that's a scary thought actually, because he was phenomenal as a player, and as a manager he looks just as good. So that's going to be a bit scary. What about you? What?
Sorry, mate. I was just going to say. Sheffield United, I agree. I think they'll go as well. They like I said earlier, they're a yo-yo club. They come up, maybe they don't, but they'll be favourites to go down next season if they
stay up. Yeah,
if they stay up, but they are not the sort of club that stays in the Premier League.
No,
so
it's the same. I think it's the same with everything, isn't it? I think whenever they come up, it's one of those teams where try to be defensively solid and nick goals. And I don't think you can do that in the PL. No. You've got to be able. That's why I think Burnley will be fine, because they just get goals. You don't get as many points as they did last year and score as many goals as they did, and not take that as a sort of sign. But then, having said that, last year, how many people would have had? It would have had Leicester and that going down. There's a few clubs I think that are in real trouble this year, and it's going to be really interesting. But obviously, I don't know what you think, Ben. Obviously, of the other two as well. But
I mean, it's like I said. I think we all think Luton's a breath of fresh air, but I could see it getting ugly. I mean.
Are we talking that derby season?
I was going to say, what was it they got? Was it 8? Was it?
I think so. It was 7, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll really struggle. I mean, you'd like to think that they'll manage to get a string of wins just to kind of give their fans a good season, But I can't see them performing particularly well in the Premier League. But like you said, it's just about building that club financially until it gets to a point where it can build a
Sorry,
new
we
stadium.
did Derby dirty there. They actually got 11 points in the 07-08 campaign.
Oh, did they? It was 11. I mean, that's still pretty. That's much better. But I mean, I could agree with you on that one, Ben. It could get. It depends. Like I said, it could be one of those like Blackpool did. Do you know what I mean? They started off really well, and momentum can take you a long way. But I think the fact that they don't get to play at Kenilworth Road for a period of time doesn't help until obviously that's ready. Because I think, like you said, mate, if it was opening day, Kenilworth Road's packed and it's it's bustling, then maybe they could obviously carry some momentum from that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think if they don't, it's a bit.
Yeah, I think the only trouble that could spell for Burnley is that if for some reason, and we've seen it happen with clubs where they make very quick decisions on a run of poor form, and it can cost the club big. And I think if they lost faith in company at any point for any reason, if they had a kind of a hard run of fixtures and they don't back company, that's the only way I can see them being in real trouble this season. But I think in terms of the kind of the third spot, there's 3 clubs I think that come to mind, and like you say, it's kind of a free for all. But I think it's, for me personally, it's going to be between Bournemouth, Wolves, and probably Nottingham Forest. I think those 3 clubs are all capable of getting relegated.
So what's your bottom 3 then?
Who you starting with?
You mate.
So rock bottom is Luton.
Yeah.
And then it's followed by Sheffield United. And then...
Okay, put 3 clubs in that third spot.
Yes, it'd be Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Wolves. I mean, I watched Bournemouth on a friendly against Southampton, and like I said before, you can't read too much into friendlies, but what I did see was that Billing was kind of instrumental to kind of just running the show for Bournemouth. I think if he got injured, that would hurt them big time, and when you rely on that much on one player to kind of run your team, you're always kind of going into a bit of a tricky situation.
So Mike, we'll do the same for you, mate. So we'll have your rock bottom, the second to go down, and then put 3 teams in that third spot.
Okay. Luton bottom. Sheffield United second from bottom. And can I add a 4th, but with a caveat?
Yeah, go on. A micro munch caveat.
A little caveat. So I reckon, agree, Wolves in trouble. I think Lopetegui's probably good enough to keep them out of it, but again, I've not really seen any way or anyone they've brought in that's gonna score goals. So, which is exactly the same problem they've had for the last God knows how long. So yeah, Wolves. It's tricky because there's a few really that you could pick from, to be honest. Palace.
Shout.
Forest. And my 4th one would be if, and this is a big
swear to God, Mike, if I think this is
if Harry Kane moves from Tottenham,
fuck off.
I will. Yeah, I
ridiculous.
I genuinely do. Genuinely believe that.
Wow.
Genuinely believe that they could be in trouble. Genuinely. That's not me trying to wind you up. That's a genuine belief.
For relegation.
Yes.
Seriously, Spurs in an 80,000 seater stadium for relegation.
Yes.
That is just so much disrespect. It's unbelievable.
Well, Nate.
Kulusevski, Son,
as a te-
Bissouma.
Okay. Kulusevski, what did he do last year?
Look, let's not get bogged down on Spurs.
No, let's not.
And I always argue this point, and it frustrates me so much. For so long, Spurs have built this team around Kane. Everything has been gone through Kane. That's pretty much because he's the talisman, because he's such a prolific international player. You know, it's all about Kane at Spurs. And I think for a fan, you know, coming towards the end of his contract, it's kind of like we need to get past that, because I think when you remove Kane from that equation, yes, he scored a lot of goals, but that's because it was all centered around him. If you take him out and you create a system where you're giving opportunities to other players, and there is quality in that team, Son, you know, Richarlison, and for all jokes aside, I think, to be fair, under Conte, he wasn't given a fair run, and I think he was probably a bit miserable with the kind of the setup that we had last season. I think you're going to definitely see a different side to Spurs in terms of our new style of play. I can't see us getting any less than 8th. It would be ridiculous to suggest that we're going to get relegated.
I think
that's prime clickbait. He's going to put that in the thumbnail, no doubt.
It's not clickbait. It's a genuine belief. They play. I'm not going to, because like Sam said, let's not get bogged down into it.
We're all allowed.
I didn't even mention
opinions.
Madison. You know, we've actually replaced Eriksen. We have a really good attacking midfielder.
Let's see where you are in December.
Oh yeah, I look forward to it.
So do I.
Okay, right. Let's move on from this. We'll do so quickly. My top.
Yeah,
my
yours,
bottom
mate.
three. So, Luton, Sheffield United, and I still think Everton are in trouble with Wolves
Please.
and Nottingham Forest.
Please.
So that's my bottom 2 with 3 teams who are going to
Never
struggle.
been relegated, Everton.
I know,
First
but
division.
First time for everything.
Leicester won the Premier League a few years ago. Come on, there's a first time for everything.
This is true. We'll put some money on it.
Right. Let's get off of relegation before there's any more tears or tantrums. So let's talk about Europe. So this year we've got City, Arsenal, United, Newcastle in the Champions League, and we'll talk about those 4 first. So I think, what we're saying, are we saying City are going to do the unthinkable, win Champions League again?
No, I don't think so.
I think they're always going to be strong favourites. I think they're definitely going to get semi-final, final. I think it's just, I don't think it's a given for City in Europe. You know, they've only just won it for the first time with all that quality, and you know how they dominated the kind of domestic side of football. But to say that they, you know, they're the kind of top choice to win the next champion, no.
I think like there might be not a drop off, but I think there might be that thing of, oh, we've done it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think, and especially with Pep, because he's been so intense about doing that, it's going to be hard to see what they strive to do. Quadruple is probably the only other thing that they can achieve, or doing back-to-back trebles, and I just can't see past Madrid. I just can't. I look at that team now, especially after the summer they've just had, and I cannot see how they don't. For the next, I mean, that midfield is set up for the next 10 years.
They've only got one striker though.
I think that might be about to change. So we will see if there's. They're obviously forcing the Mbappe issue in some way, shape, or form. Put it this way: if they don't next year, the idea of having Mbappe along with Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo, and then that midfield behind him, that's terrifying. To be honest, like absolutely terrifying. But
so, I agree. I don't think City will be. I don't think they'll get out the quarterfinals this year. I think.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I don't. I just don't. I think they're going to come up against a team who will just have their number. I think I think they're quite a. I'd probably say a decent run to the final for last year. And I know, what was it? Was it Real Madrid they had in the semi-final?
Yeah, they had Bayern Munich before, but it's not the same Bayern Munich as it used to be. Do you know what I mean?
Madrid I would say Madrid was only their real stopping block from getting to that final.
Yeah.
And then the minute Inter got to that final, you were like, well, it's either City or Madrid that would.
And in all fairness, they didn't really deserve to win the final on the night. For me, like if you look at the actual clear-cut chances during the game, if it hadn't been for Romelu Lukaku being their best player, they probably would have lost it. You know.
Yeah.
But
I think that was the first time I saw a really shaky performance from City. They look nervous.
Yeah, no, it really kicked in. I think that's when it hit them, wasn't it? A little bit like, oh my god, like the magnitude of what they had to do and what was just about to happen. I think really hit them quite hard. But they got through it, you know, and all credit to him, you know, for doing it. It's not easy to go and win the treble, especially when you know you've got a limitless cash book. It's very difficult. So. Yeah, I'm with you, Sam. I don't think they're gonna. I could see that. I think they probably will get to the semis, but it depends on the draw. Do you know what I mean? It really does depend on the draw.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're gonna have that same drive that they had last year to win it. You know, I think there is, like I said, that element of them just being a bit like, oh, we've done it. You know, and it's a bit of a weight lifted, and then you know, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Pep going forward, because you know, is he gonna have that same? Or can he get the players to have the same drive as he has to be able to do it? You know, I think the Premier League's probably going to be a bit more competitive this year than it was last. Don't get me wrong, because obviously I know, but Arsenal made the last few months, or the last month or so easy by just completely throwing it away, really.
Yeah, it wasn't even like exciting, was it? It was
not
just
really,
a complete and utter bottle job. So
it was a complete damp squib. You know, really, yeah. It's not like the Liverpool City title run-ins that we had before that literally went to like the last day. You know, the minute Arsenal had that game against, actually, well, there was probably the minute that normally a 2-2 at Anfield is good, but actually when you drop that, you know, I think the minute Granit Xhaka started a fight on Trent, that was pretty much the beginning of the end, really, because they just couldn't handle it when the pressure got hot. They just couldn't handle it. You know, then going away to West Ham and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, that's by the by. Actually, technically, we could segue onto Arsenal and Europe and how do you think they're going to get on.
So how do you think they're going to do?
I think that, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll get it out of the way. I personally think the only two teams that are going to progress through the group stages is City and United.
Agreed.
I honestly think Arsenal are going to struggle in Europe with the kind of depends. Obviously, this all comes down to where you get placed in the groups. Because if they get in a group with, I don't know, a Turkish team or like a French side, you know, that isn't PSG, you know, it's pretty much they'll be good, they'll be fine. But I think if they get two teams that might be a bit more difficult, they won't get through. Yeah. I don't think they have that experience to overcome big Europe teams.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think Arsenal. I don't know. I think Arsenal at a push last 16. You know, I think like I said, we've all said it all depends on the groups and how well you start in those. But yeah, I don't see Arsenal getting close to the final at all. For one, I think they don't have, and this is potentially controversial, they don't have star quality. They don't have
yeah. No,
they don't have a Salah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think they've got the potential. They've got players that got all the potential in the world to do. It might be the year that one of them breaks out and does do that. You know, it might.
You know, they don't have a Salah. They don't have a Rashford. They don't have a Kane. They don't have there's no maybe Saka. Maybe Saka is the only one who I would say could be that player. But he has to now do what he did last season again this season. Yeah,
and put up the same number. I think Martinelli potentially could be, but I think his minutes are going to get affected by the fact that Trossard's there. So, but yeah, I would tend to agree. I think maybe the only player might now change that, depending on. Well, I mean, this is the tester now is Rice, because I do think he is an upgrade on Partey.
Sorry, I did forget about Rice. Then Rice is a quality player.
Yeah. But I think he's
if you can up everyone else's game, then
Yeah, exactly. He theoretically should do because he's a leader, which is something that they really, really did miss last season, especially at the back end of it. I think that funnily enough, actually, when push came to shove last year, it wasn't the youngsters that let Arsenal down; it was the experienced players that let them down. Partey and co were the ones that really did. For a lack of and Jesus, they're the ones that bottled it. Really, you can't expect the youngsters to be the ones picking up the slack for you.
Well, I think the problem with Arsenal is my kind of take from it, especially towards the end of the season, is that Arteta really didn't rotate throughout the season. He was really relying on kind of like a strong 11, and
same back four in 18 Premier League games, I think.
Yeah,
no rotation.
Saka played every single game, didn't he? That season.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and they brought in players to give them depth. They brought that Vieira player. They brought Trossard, and obviously they started to use them towards the end. But for me, they just seemed to be playing it a bit safe by sticking with the same 11 that they were kind of confident with. And I think if they rotated more and got used to that rotation, they probably would have survived the tail end of the season.
I think the problem with that, though, is that they wouldn't have picked up the results that they did do if they had rotated, because the squad just isn't strong enough. That's the downside to it, is that their play. I mean, that showed when they did have to rotate it and Saliba wasn't there. Suddenly, that defence that had been rock solid just became as porous as anything. They
became very reliant on a team that were playing week in and week out.
But that's the thing, is that you can't rotate if the other players aren't there. Like, when Tomiyasu gets injured and you're playing Ben White, you can't then change to Cedric. Do you know what I mean? That was the sort of downside. But I get what you mean, though. But that's part of the squad building exercise. You got to be able to account for that. I think maybe this year, I actually think they're going to do all right. I don't think they're going to pull up any trees. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're going to get to the semi-finals or anything. But I think they'll make it out the group. My one that I think will do well, and I have to agree with you, Ben, here, is I think United are probably geared up for it. I think they're geared up for it because if they continue the way they played last year, they are built for cup competitions, in the sense of just
everyone has to stay fit.
But I mean, because the thing is, if you can keep clean sheets and you've got the firepower that United do on the break, provided everyone is fit, then you are born for cup competitions. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they've got European experience. I mean, Casemiro is kind of the shout-out one. This is a guy who's won multiple Champions League titles. He knows to handle the pressure and control the games.
Bruno as well. Bruno's not been out of European football in 7 years, 8 years, or something like that.
Obviously got Varane as well. He's been there and done it. So,
loads of experience.
So I thought if I was to put my money on any English team doing really well in the Champions League, it would be United. I think I'd
love a Champions League trophy this year.
I can't see it being a trophy, but I could see you guys getting to the semis. It depends. Obviously, draw depending. Like if you ran into anyone other than Madrid or City, I'd feel relatively comfortable as if with United doing quite well. I think.
Well, it depends if we come up against bloody Sevilla again.
Well, I mean, they are
actual bloody bogey team in Europe.
Yeah, they are and I guess we're all agreed Newcastle out in the group stages.
Yeah.
I think so. Just from the coefficient problem they're going to have, because they're going to be in pot 3 or 4, aren't they?
They are.
Did they have Europe before?
No, not since Pardew, was it?
That's what I mean. They've gone from no Europe to Champions League. That's a hell of a jump.
And the issue I've got with it, and this will be a nice little good segue into the next bit, is the fact that now a player like Alan St. Maximan has gone to Saudi. And actually, he is a squad depth player, in the fact that if he comes on, he could do something in a game. Even if he starts, he can do something in the game. So,
I'm not.
But I don't know. Maybe we'll touch on Saudi in a minute. But because the only other thing we should probably talk about with Europe is that we've got how many? We got 3 teams in Europa League this year, haven't we? So
Yeah.
because we've got Villa, Brighton, and West Ham. Because West Ham have got won the conference, didn't they? So
So yeah, they're in Europa League. Yeah.
So what we're thinking with, let's start with them. Let's start with West Ham. What we're thinking?
I could see them, to be fair, having a fairly decent run, because I think when you look at Europa right now in terms of across Europe, I wouldn't say there are any real big sharks in the tank. I think it's a fairly even kind of pool. So they could have a good run, because I think they get pretty geared up. To be fair to West Ham, you know, they kind of rise to the occasion, but I think losing Rice ultimately will hurt them. Bowen's a phenomenal player.
I think they're gonna do all right in Europa.
Yeah.
I really do. I agree with you. I think, like you said, Rice is a big loss for them, but they've now got that massive amount of money to invest into the squad, and if they invest well, and don't buy Harry Maguire, then they'll do all right. But I mean, that's your gritty teeth, because I would love them to buy him and get rid of him. So, but yeah,
I actually think he would do very well in a West Ham shirt.
I do. Yeah, I think you do well outside of Man United. I think it's become a bit of a poison chat. It's almost like the Phil Jones kind of situation where, you know, it all just went horribly wrong, and he just kind of was just doomed to kind of see out his contract and live on the bench. But maybe he'll get more play this season. But I just think for him, he needs a new start in a new club.
Sorry, I got that wrong. It's Liverpool, Brighton, West Ham, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is.
They're in conference.
Yeah, they are. I actually think
Liverpool have to be favourites to win it. I think
You reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I think they will have a bounce. Once again, I don't think they'll challenge for the title, but I think they're definitely going to be in the top 4 bracket. But it would be hard to not see them in the final.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The fact
I completely forgot that they were in there was mad enough. But you know,
yeah,
I think if you chuck them in the conversation with the favourites for the who would also be in there, that would be, you know, you're looking at
Sevilla,
because let's be honest, they'll do what they always do in the Champions League.
Drop down to the competition they actually enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they can actually win.
What are we thinking about Brighton though?
I think they're going to struggle this season. I really do. Not because of De Zerbi. I think he's the best thing since sliced bread. And when Klopp leaves, I would love to have him. But I just think that squad is, well, you never know with them. You know what I mean? You just don't know what you're going to get with them, really. Like, the thing about Brighton, which I will say, is they are essentially Southampton 8 years ago or 7 years ago. Do you remember when there was that stage where Southampton had Pochettino, they had Koeman, they had that, and then they just had this brilliant habit of just, they sold one of the big players and then they just bring in another one that was absolutely top quality to replace them. Then they would sell him. You can only do that for so long. I think if they keep Caicedo, different story, but I can't see a world where he doesn't go to Chelsea. And if he does, that's a massive, obviously, loss from that. But this is why I didn't have them in my top 7 in the Premier League. If they didn't have Europe, I would say they're definitely top 7. But because they've got Europe, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think they have the rotation available, especially at the back. I don't think they've got the rotation to be able to do that. Up front, they've got more than enough options. But in that midfield and at the back, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brighton's just a complete potluck with them, because I think their recruitment last season, you know, when we saw it all come together, I think
I was
I think-
worried playing Brighton. Like,
Yeah, I think that was
like,
it.
Watching United against Brighton, I was like, this is terrifying.
No one wanted to play Brighton because they were so well organised, and they were just pulling on these players that nobody had heard of, that were going for like 4 or 5 million, and they were just pulling up gold everywhere they went. And if they can do that this season, because they've clearly got a great model, then yes, they could probably do well. But it's like Mike said, there's only so many times where you can sell quality and expect to to continue to get successful with the transfer market. So I don't know. I really don't know.
Let's talk about Villa with conference favourites.
Yes.
Yes,
I think they win it.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I really think they're going to be a proper surprise next season.
When you consider the fact that West Ham won it last year, and Villa are a better team with a better squad, they'll win it. And Unai as well, better manager, more accustomed to winning in Europe.
Yeah. Well, this is why I think they won't necessarily get number 7, the top 7 spot. So I think Emery will prioritise European silverware, and I think Villa fans will want to prioritise silverware, because automatically that gets you back into Europa, and it's just, why wouldn't you go for it? You know, it's the best chance of getting silverware.
I could actually see them winning a cup, though. I think. I genuinely think I think they're the team that nobody is going to want to play next year. I really do.
I can't see them juggling Premier League cups and Europe. I think they either go one or the other. So I think it's either if they go out of Europe, they go for the cup or they go for the league. But do you want the money that comes from winning a cup, or do you want a place in potentially the Champions League, or Europa?
Well, the thing is, realistically, they're not going to get top 4. So Europa is really where they want to be at. So why wouldn't you go for Conference League? Put all your eggs in the basket, because if you win that, you've got Europa, which is the same as 5th or 6th.
Can't fault that. You can't fault that logic there. So
no,
but we're in agreement that they're favourites.
Oh yeah, definitely 100%.
Oh yeah,
100%.
I just had a look. So from Spain, it's Osasuna that and what German club is? Hang on. Now my phone's gonna die. Bundesliga 2022-23.
God, you're really rolling this one out.
Yeah.
Eintracht Frankfurt.
That would be a good final, to be fair.
To be fair,
very good final.
To be fair,
They've
they're
sold
not
some good players.
They're not quite the Frankfurt they were when they played West Ham. But then they're still a decent team. Like I said, I think Villa walk it personally, just because of Emery, and I think because of the squad they've got now is. I think Villa could put out quite a lot of the youngsters in a bit of a B team in the early stages and still get through. And then obviously sort of strengthen up as the competition goes along. Whether Emery does that or not, I don't know, but that would be my sort of theory.
Got Lille from Ligue 1.
I mean, they're decent, but again, not quite the same team that they were when they obviously won it a couple of years ago or a few years ago.
I think looking at other teams, I think there's Villa with, like I said, with Unai and the recruitment that they've done over the summer.
Yeah,
they've got to be favourites.
I agree. I just don't understand how you can buy. I mean, why? I know exactly how he got Pau Torres, because obviously he was from Villarreal. But if I was any of the other big 4, I can't believe that no one picked him up quicker. Like I'm genuinely shocked that no one in the big 6 picked him up quicker.
Well, we tried, but he didn't want to go.
So doesn't want to play in the Championship.
We've spoken a fair bit about recruitment tonight, but and I don't want to get too hung up on this, because you could fill a podcast with just this. So Saudi and the ever-growing Saudi movement for football. Like I said, let's not get hung up on this too much because, like I said, you could do a whole podcast just on this. So,
well, I can keep it short and sweet. To be honest, if I had to give my opinion, I think the deal's already done. Because when I think you look at the Champions League, where they've changed the format, you've got more clubs than that now. I think when you look at FIFA with the World Super Cup, for the Club World Cup, I think these are all just gateways for a Saudi league to be introduced. They're right at a point right now where they're not under the financial fair play, the governance of FIFA and UEFA. So they've rather smartly, in some ways, have decided, let's inject a load of money into this league, get all the big names, build the profile, so that when we do go in, when the quality's there, we're going to be competing in Champions League, and they'll have better lineups than bloody Turkey or
that's
other
the thing.
smaller
Like,
leagues.
the Turkish league was probably, I would say, up till maybe 3-4 years ago, was probably still up there in terms of leagues that you would consider.
Again, don't get me wrong.
Probably a higher standard, but now
there's a lot of movement still going on around.
Also, is I mean,
two big clubs in Wilfried Zaha. He's going to Turkey. He's a top quality player. But you got like Ukraine. Obviously Russia was in it as well, and it's kind of like, I just think it almost feels like the conversation's already been had. I think the whole build up to Qatar, no doubt there were payments under the table.
Yeah, so
this is already going to happen.
So let me just reel through some players who have gone to Saudi. So, and I'm not talking about Ronaldo from last season, and how high profile that was, and the conversation that we had regarding him last season. So this is after Ronaldo. So this is post Ronaldo move. You've got Benzema, N'Golo Kante, Ruben Neves, Koulibaly, Edouard Mendy. Steven Gerrard's gone as a coach when he come out on TV and said that he didn't want to do it. Brozovic, Jota, Roberto Firmino, Milinkovic-Savic, Fofana, Malcolm, Jordan Henderson, Moussa Dembele, Riyad Mahrez, and Saint-Maximin. And that's as of the 30th of July, and I haven't listed every player that's gone. And then there's still talks ongoing, Bernardo Silva, there's Saul from Atletico Madrid, Paul Pogba's been rumoured to go, Fabinho we've just mentioned, obviously Alex Telles has gone. I think for me, so I'll do my quick opinion on it. I think every time you get a player that speaks about, I'm not in this for the money, I do it because I love football. Okay, let's say Saudi didn't emerge as an area to go, or didn't have the money that was being offered, would you still go there? Would you still go there?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I would say is, I think they've probably been sat down and sold a vision that, the Saudi League will eventually join the Champions League. It will eventually join the FIFA Super World Cup.
But hang on. Let's be real here, though. Those players that have joined, some of them are in their early 30s, and I don't think Saudi's going to join the Champions League for maybe 5 to 10 years.
No, it'll be sooner than that. It won't be the next season or the season after that. But I
cannot see it being in the Champions League anytime soon. I just think there'll be way too many hurdles for FIFA. FIFA and UEFA will not talk to each other around a deal for getting.
I think part of the reason why they'll be quick to join it actually is because FIFA, UEFA will want to basically reel them in, because once they're under the umbrella of UEFA and FIFA, they will have to abide by some form of kind of governance around financial fair play. And I think that's where because I think it will almost become a situation where the other 5 big European leagues will want them to join to rein them in, to stop them from having a monopoly.
That's a really good take, actually. So we're sort of, because then, are you then saying is the
Well, look at golf. Look at PGA
I
and
agree.
the Live Tour.
Is the drive though? If they are under financial fair play, is the
No, it'll balance out. It'll balance out.
Yeah, exactly.
Once they join UEFA and FIFA, you know.
But that's my point. That's my point now.
But this is what I mean.
Now, is the only reason I have an issue with is that we are, and this is coming from someone who's played football for 15, 16 years, and you know, not a bad standard either. And I was never paid to play. You know, it was a dream, never happened. But for someone, let's take Fofana, for example, from Lens, who I actually thought was a really good winger and or midfielder rather, and you know, they were 1 point behind Paris Saint-Germain last season, and he was massive for them. But he's 28 years old, and it's like,
you've still got so much of your career left to go. Do you know what I mean? You're in your prime.
Do you want it like, and you know, okay, like we had a little bit off of, just for the viewers, we had a little bit of a discussion about Jordan Henderson off air before we decided to start recording. I would say he is the right age to go there and get a payout. Whether that's right or not is up for debate, but I think he is the right age to go and do that. Someone like Ruben Neves.
No.
How old was Neves? What, 28?
It's not even that. I think he's 26, 27. I think he's still quite young, because when he was at Wolves in the Championship, he was still only 20, 21, because he was the under 21 captain.
I watched the video that he made saying goodbye to Wolves, and he started crying, and I'm like, are you counting how much fucking money you're going to, excuse my language, are you counting how much money you are counting with those tears? Because, I mean, let's be honest, he's going to be paid triple what he was earning at Wolves, maybe.
Yeah.
And if I was leaving Wolverhampton to go and earn 400 grand a week, I wouldn't be crying. I'd be like, great, thank you very much, Wolves, but I'm going to go and earn a payout. But that's the thing that's wrong with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Sam, I mean, like, sorry, Mike, just a quick one on the Ruben Neves. Do you think staying at Wolves he would have a bigger legacy than going to Saudi? Because, I don't mean any disrespect to Wolves.
Do players care about legacy anymore?
What I mean is, would his legacy as a player for himself be any bigger playing for Wolves than it would be winning a title in the Saudi League? Because
I would say yes.
He is a quality player, and he's always in the conversation when we talk about, you know, the kind of transfer movement.
I would say staying out of relegation in the Premier League is bigger than winning a title in the Saudi League.
I
always see it as like a side grade, because I think with Wolves he's not going anywhere with his career. You know, like you're saying, at best they're battling relegation, and that's great for the club to kind of have that moment when you escape it and you overcome it. But that's not a legacy for him as a player. You know, some fans might remember him, but he's not winning trophies. If you go to the Saudi League with the prospect of going into the Champion League, and your team's going to be in that pool, you know.
But as a 26-year-old, to be in the discussion of a top four move to play in the Champions League and win, you know, potentially maybe the best European Cup competition.
We're comparing hypotheticals.
I agree with that, but I just don't understand. Henderson, okay, Mike probably won't like me saying it, but I agree with him going at that age and getting a final big payout. I get that. But below the age of 29, 30, I don't understand it because, for one...
Yeah, I think we can all agree that money's the biggest
yeah,
motivation.
Yeah, money is the motivation for those players, and they do not care about football, or maybe they do. Maybe this is probably just my opinion, and that those players want the league to be over there, to be something big. But I don't think that's what they want.
I agree with you, Sam.
100%. I think they've been fed a load of BS just to sort of get them over. Oh, we want our league to be competing in the Champions League in the next 2 to 3 years, or whatever, or in the Europa League. And it's like, well, hang on, we're talking about a team that isn't like a country that isn't even in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. My thing, I automatically sort of think, is that the whole money issue, the thing that I think proves that it's a money issue, right? And this is, I'll talk about Henderson in a second, but broadly speaking, and I think this is a problem with footballers in general, and I hate the term, it's a short career. If you are an average Premier League footballer, right, and you earn, let's say the average is 80 grand a week, okay, that's 320k a month, right? Obviously get tax on that, goes down by about 45%, okay, so let's just say that's 160.
Not a calculator tapping, please tell me I hear a calculator tapping.
No, that's about 160k a week, okay? That is more, sorry, 160k a month, that is more than I would make in, put that over the year. 1 year's salary for these guys is more than most of us will ever make in a lifetime. So let me put this in perspective. So where is the financial risk here for you and your family that you care so much about? Where's the risk here?
It's greed. It's greed. It's all it is. It's greed.
Yeah, exactly. It is. So this is why this whole kind of I can go and get paid 700k out there. Is 180 grand not enough? Is that not enough? Bollocks.
The thing is, you could have all that money in the bank and still not need to spend it because you'd run out of things to buy.
It's not even just that, but the thing is, they treat it like, oh, this is a short career. But what about all the punditry? What about all the coaching? What about the management jobs afterwards? What about all the chats that people go and do talks that they get paid for?
Playing career.
Well, it's not only that.
Career.
You're talking about salary. You're not even including image rights.
Yeah, bonuses. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a load of the Saudi league is a load of nonsense. The whole thing is an absolute load of nonsense. And while I agree with you, Ben, on all of that, I think the day that the Saudi league gets added to the European Champions League is the day that football dies.
It can't. I just genuinely don't. It wouldn't be the European League, would it? Because it's not in bloody Europe.
I mean, ultimately, the way I see it, and I've always said to a few of my friends at work, is that, I live in England, so I watch the Premier League. Somebody who lives in Germany will watch the Bundesliga. The only thing that allows us to kind of look through the window into the other European leagues is by watching European Cups. And that's the problem I think the Saudis are going to struggle with, is that they're going to have to rely on a domestic audience to feed that kind of
and it's not. I don't want to. I don't even know if it's there. Do you know what I mean? I know that
Who's going to watch Saudi football?
No, I mean, I lived out in the Middle East, and they do have an appetite for it. There is a lot of stuff there that they really enjoy. But forgetting the whole human rights issue and this, that, and the other, when it comes to Jordan Henderson, my biggest problem with that in general, right, is the money side of things. Like I said, the 700k. He was on 180,000 at Liverpool, where he's loved and he's adored. He's our most successful captain. Some would say possibly the best captain we've had in the modern era, right? Wow. And he is a Liverpool legend in the sense that and all of that now has been tarnished, all of it. And I don't care what anyone says. I'm sure most Liverpool fans would say that it's been tarnished because the problem with it is that the bigger universal issues that you go, whether you agree with the Saudi laws, or that I think it's a cultural thing, and you have to respect that that's what they believe. We don't believe that because we're Western, and that's fine. But that's their thing, and I'm not going to get into that because it's too political and too above my pay grade. But my thing is the backwards effect that this is going to have for a guy who was so outspoken and so recognised as being socially conscious. You know, he was the guy that obviously talked about giving up some of their wages during furlough to go and help people that were a little bit more. He was the one that led all that. You know, he's obviously been a big LGBT, plus ambassador, all this sort of thing. And then to go
like
and
you said, you can take away all the politics. It's a question of, is this a good step for football? You know,
No.
as a footballer, is this something you want to be a part of in terms of promoting?
But I think this is what
a league driven by
greed.
wealth.
But this is what I was sort of talking about when you said a minute ago about legacy. It doesn't matter, because if Jordan Henderson cared about his legacy,
he'd have stayed.
It's not even about staying. It's not even about staying at Liverpool. It's about staying in a league, or Milner is a prime example. You know what I mean? He stuck it through. He's been a model professional. Goes to Brighton because he can still do a job there. Yeah, there is not. I don't think there's any club in the Championship, or maybe even in the lower echelons of the Premier League, that thinks, oh, you know what, I wouldn't mind having Jordan Henderson in my team. He's won absolutely everything there is to win. He's still a very decent footballer. He's not at Liverpool level anymore. I think we can all accept that. Yeah, and if he's, because a lot of this, apparently, you know, I've now heard rumours, it was about game time. He wasn't promised the game time.
You're not going to get it at 33 years old.
No, and you're definitely not going to get it at a team that's trying to get back to challenging for trophies regularly. That just ain't going to happen. So, you know...
That's what I mean. At his age, so for me, again, it's like, I don't want to get into the political side of it, because he said X and Y and Z and whatever, but
yeah,
at that sort of age, yeah, okay, go and earn your pay grade. It's the younger players that I have an issue with going over there.
Yeah, I think the one good thing, I say good thing, because my stance on it very much is that this is not a good thing for football in general, because I think it's just delving.
It'll change the market horrendously.
Oh yeah, the inflation's going to be ridiculous, and we're all diving down the rabbit hole. You know, I think the more that this goes on, the more down the rabbit hole we go. So maybe let's finish with one quick take from your mic then. My quick take on it is, I don't think it's great. My one positive at the moment is that I wouldn't say there's been an absolute star game-changing signing. I mean, like you said, I know they've had players in there that are kind of in that prime age, you know, like, but there's not been a kind of a real global superstar. I mean, you could argue Ronaldo, but he's at 38 for Christ's sake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's past it, so it's not the same. But that's why I was absolutely terrified of Mbappe saying yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely terrified of Mbappe saying yes, because I think if that went ahead, scary. I think then we do have a problem. Like, for the existence of football, I think we have a problem. Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, it's that younger generation of footballer that's going to eventually go over just for the money, rather than what actually football is to a lot of people, and is exactly. So, but well, I think we'll leave that and maybe revisit it on another podcast. So, well, I'm sure it's not going to go away. So, I mean, I've gone through pretty much all of the topics that we wanted to discuss. I've got a quick fire one before we finish off. Okay. And then again, if you boys have got any sort of quick fire ones you want to fire off before we say goodbye. Where do you stand now on the Messi and Ronaldo debate? Because I am now a fully converted Lionel Messi fan. I've always been a Messi fan and stand by that. Ben?
Well, you know, I've not followed football all my life, as you know. I've probably followed it for the good part of 4 or 5 years now. So I'm kind of looking at it fairly fresh, kind of maybe to the latter stages of their career. I think they've both deserved, or they rightfully got a legacy.
That's that word again.
Yeah.
And I think it's a strong word for such prolific footballers that have given so much to the game. I think it's almost a bit like yin and yang. I think if Messi didn't have Ronaldo, or Ronaldo didn't have Messi, you wouldn't have the same heights that you see they've gone to. Mm-hmm. And I think Ronaldo's done brilliant for his club. National club. They've won a Euros, and Messi obviously winning the World Cup. I think that both equally important for the game and what they've done for football. Regardless of how they finish their story, you can't fault them. I don't believe there's just one GOAT. I think
I think that's a very diplomatic answer to that question.
I know it sounds like I'm sitting on the fence.
No,
but
I get it.
I genuinely
I get
think there's no GOAT. I really don't.
I get that answer. So, but yeah, okay.
I mean, 10 years ago we were talking about Pele being the greatest of all time, but Messi's rightfully asserted himself with all his kind of recent achievements.
Yeah.
And at one point we were talking about Ronaldo as the GOAT. So it's all ebbs and flows, my friends. I think.
So, you boys got anything else you want to discuss quickly?
Breakthrough player this season, as it stands in terms of the transfers.
Interesting. Let's say
With the squads currently as they are, who do you reckon is going to have like the kind of best breakthrough season?
current squads, I would say. I know that's a tricky one. You'll have to come back to me.
All right, Ben.
No, you start, Mike. You've clearly thought about this before we have, so.
I've got a couple, but I think one that I'm definitely sure is going to have a very, very big season. And I think I'm hoping that we'll see him in an England squad before long. Jacob Ramsey.
Interesting.
I think Jacob Ramsey is destined for quite big things. I think he's excellent. Really, really good footballer.
I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with another Englishman, and I'm going to say... Okay, so maybe not a breakout season because he's been around for a couple of seasons, but I think Eze's going to do things this year.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player.
I think he's... that free kick he scored against United,
Yeah,
there aren't words to describe it. Not polite ones, anyway.
no, it's the first time I've looked at sort of like watched Palace and gone, Zaha hasn't been their best player this year.
Yeah, I think I'll go with Eze. I think he's, like I say, it's not a breakout season, but actually, if he hadn't have got injured in pre-season, I would have said Kobe Mainoo.
Yeah, I think he's a very good player as well. He looks a very, 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 very decent footballer.
Yeah, I would have said that he was that next United youngster to break into the
squad.
Main, squad. So, but like I said, if he comes back from the injury sort of November, October time, then and it still plays as well as he has been, then yeah, one of those two for me.
Yeah, no, I can go along with that. Ben?
To be honest, I can only think I've been very heavily, for the first time since last season, I've been very interested in how Tottenham is coming to shape, and I think what we've been crying out for is a left back.
Destiny Udogie.
And he just looks so good.
Agreed. He is excellent, I think.
And I think Solomon could be good in rotation. I think he looks impressive. He did so well for Fulham last season. But I think Nicholas Jackson, I think it's Chelsea.
Yeah.
I saw a bit of him in pre-season.
He scored 2 on the bounce. So
he looked pretty good actually. And I think Mudryk looks kind of... I don't know. It's hard to judge pre-season, but I think...
I know. I just think I think this year there's a lot of young talent coming through, and I think I think they've had to. I think the younger players have had to really up their game in the last season or two to actually try and break in the squads, and I think that's going to start showing this season and next. So
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good topic, that, Mike. I like that.
Thank you, mate. I'm like I said. Oh, and last one. First manager to get sacked.
Well, I know what your answer's going to be.
Who's that?
I don't want to say it for the abuse that's going to come your way in a second, but I think you're thinking of Postecoglou.
Ben?
No, I don't think right now we're in any position to be looking for another manager after a run of bad results. But I think, don't get me wrong, I'm being very pragmatic about this next season because I think we will have ups and downs, no doubt. But I think when you look at the pre-season stats, this is a totally different Tottenham approach to the last 2 seasons. It looks refreshing, so I'm confident. I think anyone who's managing Everton's going to be basically destined to sack.
Yeah.
I think maybe Luton. I don't know.
See,
Bournemouth. I think.
I don't think Luton should be potentially included in that conversation because I think what's the name of their manager?
Oh, it's what's his name? Because he was ironically he was Forest Green's old manager, and then he was ironically manager of Watford. Oh God, what was his name? I should know this. Oh my God! Yeah, but I know because he's the old Watford manager, Forest Green manager. I used to go watch him when he was manager there. I actually don't know about Ange. I don't think he'll be the first. Rob Edwards, that's the one. I don't think Ange will be the first to go. I do think he won't be there by the end of the season. Okay. I think.
I'm putting my money on it. He's not going.
I don't think. I'm not gonna. I don't think we can probably say first manager sacking, and
I'd say if I was going,
I couldn't put a name to it. Just no. I think we probably need to have that conversation in maybe 5-6 games in.
Yeah, I would literally throw my name out there and say though it would be potentially Hodgson or Lopetegui. I think.
Well, I can't see Hodgson getting the sack. He's a 76-year-old bloke.
He's also a lad.
who came back to help them out, basically.
Yeah,
so,
but Lopetegui I could potentially see if he kicks off too much about the lack of funds he's being given, etc. I could see him kick it off a bit. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like I said, we'll obviously do that on our next podcast, which I'm guessing will probably be before after the season starts. Yeah,
maybe we'll. You heard it here first. You heard it here first, folks. We're going to do another one. So
we are definitely.
Definitely. Ben, anything else from you?
No, I'm all right.
Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure as always, gents.
Yeah, no, it has.
It's good to get back into the talk of football.
Yeah, there's plenty of it going on our little messenger chat. There's always stuff like that. If we converted half the stuff we spoke to on Messenger into a podcast,
maybe not even half of it. I think only maybe a quarter of it's.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and there's a few. I'm sure there was a few expletives being sent over.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do another one after the first week of games.
Yeah, and see where we all. Yeah, that sounds good. See where we all stand.
I mean, that first week always throws spanners, doesn't it? So
Chelsea and Liverpool. That's going to be.
I can't.
Is that your first game?
Yeah, away at Stamford Bridge. Yep.
Wow, that's going to be. What's Spurs' first game?
Brentford away. So it's a tough fixture, to be fair. I don't doubt that for a second, but I'm confident.
I'm interested. That Liverpool-Chelsea game, that's got me.
Yeah. Who's United got?
We have got
Wolves. Wolves are home.
Oh, that's surely in the bag.
It is.
You'd like to think so. I mean, it can't go worse than last season's start.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if anyone wants to know who's got the easiest run of fixtures to start the season, I bet you can all take a flipping guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Of course. of course they have.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right.
Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, to listening to the Untitled Podcast, which we will probably try and work out a name for this podcast eventually. But as of yet, we are the Untitled Podcast. Thank you for listening. Leave your comments below. Like I said, if you like it, fantastic. Let us know. If you don't,
Doesn't
maybe don't
matter.
let us know. But we're still going to do another podcast regardless. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And subscribe to the Micro Munch YouTube channel because that's the only way you can hear us. So
At the moment, as it
at
stands.
the moment. So
That'll change.
who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, gents, and we'll see you next time.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
Well done, guys.